It began with a promise, one that humanity has never stopped making. A promise to borrow from tomorrow to survive today. At first, it seemed harmless. A loan to build a bridge, a mortgage for a home, a bond to fight a war. But somewhere along the line, the world crossed a line it cannot uncross. Today, our planet owes more than 3 times what it produces in a year. For every dollar that exists, there are $3 of debt behind it. And no one, not governments, not banks, not even, knows how it will ever be repaid. Debt has always been humanity's favorite illusion. It lets us live better than we can afford, grow faster than we deserve, and postpone the reckoning to a day that we hope never comes. But that day always arrives. 4,000 years ago, in ancient Mesopotamia, kings would periodically cancel all debts when society became unstable. They called it a debt jubilee. This wasn't an act of mercy. It was an act of survival. When too many farmers became enslaved by their loans, the entire economy ground to a halt. So the ruler would wipe the slate clean, free the debtors, and reset the system. Civilization could then continue. Centuries later, Rome built its entire empire on credit. Its soldiers were paid in coin minted from borrowed silver. Its magnificent roads, aqueducts, and powerful armies were all financed by debt. But when the empire ran out of new lands to conquer, out of new gold to loot, its debts consumed it from within. Rome didn't fall to barbarians first. It fell to bankruptcy. This same pattern has repeated itself throughout history. Look at Spain in the 16th century, the richest empire on earth, yet it went bankrupt 4 times in a single century. France, just before its revolution, was drowning in loans, interest, and crippling taxes. Even Britain, during its imperial peak, borrowed endlessly to fund its wars and colonies. But none of these stories can compare to what happened in the modern era, when debt stopped being a tool and became the system itself. The year is 1971. President Richard Nixon makes a monumental decision. He ends the gold standard. Money is no longer tied to gold, silver, or anything tangible. For the first time in history, governments can print as much currency as they want, and they do. Debt explodes. Global credit expands 20-fold in just 50 years. The world's economy transforms into a massive pyramid of promises, with each layer built on the one below. And for a while, it feels like magic. Debt fuels everything. Our homes, our cars, our education, businesses, technology, even wars. People borrow. Companies borrow. Nations borrow. And the more everyone borrows, the richer the world seems to become. Growth becomes the new god. But there's a dark secret at the core of this miracle. Debt doesn't create real wealth. It just pulls the future into the present. Every dollar we borrow today is stolen from tomorrow's income, and tomorrow always comes. In 2008, the world hit its first major wall. Banks had lent money they didn't have to people who couldn't pay it back. When this illusion finally cracked, the global financial system came dangerously close to a total collapse. Governments had to step in. They printed trillions of dollars and replaced the private debt with public debt. The crisis didn't end, it just changed its shape. It moved from households to nations, from Wall Street to Washington. Today, global debt has surpassed an unimaginable $300 trillion. That's about $40,000 for every man, woman, and child on the planet. It grows by $10 million every single minute. And every solution we invent to control it only seems to feed the beast even more. When interest rates rise, the debt becomes heavier. When rates fall, borrowing explodes all over again. The cycle tightens like a noose one that we've tied around our own necks. Governments borrow to buy social peace. Corporations borrow to buy growth. Individuals borrow just to buy more time. The entire planet is leveraged. And everyone is betting that someone else will eventually pay the bill. But what happens when the world runs out of buyers? What happens when trust fades and the river of credit stops flowing? History offers us stark warnings, written in panic and blood. Look at Argentina, which has defaulted 9 times in a century. Look at Greece, where austerity shattered an entire generation. Look at Japan, drowning in debt and printing money just to stay afloat. These are not isolated stories. They are previews of what's to come. The cracks are already visible. Inflation, once thought to be dead, is roaring back to life. Currencies are weakening. Nations are arguing over who owes what. And the middle class, crushed between rising prices and stagnant wages, is beginning to lose faith in the system itself. Debt doesn't just destroy economies, it destroys trust. And trust is the only thing that keeps our money alive. But here's where the story takes a twist, because debt isn't always the villain. It's also the engine of progress. Without debt, there would be no railroads, no electricity, no internet, no vaccines. Every great innovation in human history began as a loan and act of faith that the future would repay the risk. Debt is the fuel of creation. But when creation stops and pure consumption takes over, that fuel turns into poison. And here's another twist. Most of the world's debt will never be repaid. It's mathematically impossible. The people in charge know this. So instead of paying it off, they plan to inflate it away, making old debts worthless through rising prices and endless money printing. It's not a conspiracy. It's the only option they have left. A third twist. The digital revolution has made debt even more dangerous. Today, money moves at the speed of light. Algorithms lend, borrow, and trade billions in milliseconds. Debt can build up faster than any government can possibly track it. A single shock, a war, a cyber attack, a sudden market crash could unravel the entire web before anyone can react. The fourth twist is that the age of free money is ending. After years of near-zero interest rates, central banks are tightening the screws again. For a generation raised on easy credit, the hangover is going to be brutal. Mortgages, student loans, and national budgets, all written when debt was cheap, are now becoming too heavy to bear. The reckoning has begun. And the fifth twist? The next crisis may not come from Wall Street, but from governments themselves. When nations owe more than their entire economies produce, they must choose between defaulting on their debt or devaluing their currency. Neither option is painless. Either choice can reshape the world order overnight, so what happens next? Perhaps we'll just repeat history, another debt jubilee, another reset, another round of borrowed hope. Or maybe the system will evolve. Some dream of digital currencies that can track every transaction, every loan, every single dollar. Others predict a quiet default inflation so slow and steady that people don't even notice their savings disappearing into thin air. Whatever form it takes, the result is the same. The debts of the past will be paid by the labor of the future. But history also shows us something else. Every debt crisis, no matter how devastating, leaves behind survivors. These are the people who saw the storm coming and built real value before it hit. They were the farmers who owned their land, the craftsmen with skills no currency could devalue, the investors who understood that paper promises fade but tangible assets endure. They were ordinary people who simply refused to live on borrowed time. The lesson is simple, but it's brutal. Debt can build you, and debt can break you. It all depends on whether you control it or it controls you. For nations, this means investing in real productivity, not in illusions of endless growth. For companies, it means borrowing for creation, not for speculation. And for individuals, it means remembering that every loan is a trade with your future, and the future always collects. The story of global debt is really the story of human ambition, our refusal to wait for what we want. We built empires on credit, crossed oceans on borrowed hope, and reached for the stars on borrowed money. Debt is our oldest sin, and it's also our greatest invention. But every invention comes with a price. When a society forgets that, when it starts to believe that debt is wealth and credit is creation, collapse becomes inevitable, not as a punishment, but as a rebalancing. And so, here we stand at the edge of history, staring at numbers too large to even comprehend. Governments whisper, central banks print, and people everywhere hope that the future will somehow save them. But the truth remains the same as it was in Babylon, in Rome, in London, and in New York. You can borrow time, but you can't borrow forever, because one day, the future always arrives, and the bill always comes due. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more content that explores the forces shaping our world. We'll see you in the next one.